Welcome once again to the Bountiful Chest. I am Shadow, and today I want to talk about multiclassing through the systems. But I'll mention Palladium along with 4E. Palladium Fantasy has a book that has multiclassing rules, and it's one of the supplemental books. And as far as I know, I don't think those rules have ever been written down in another book. I don't know if it's if you want it, buy this book, or if it's we kind of made these rules because people wanted a multi-class, but we don't really think it works well in the system, which probably doesn't because there's all sorts of. It's already a system that has not much balance to it in the first place. But then 4E, they eventually added multi-classing, mainly I think because people complained. But 4E was a system that was built so that you could have a group of all fighters and not, you know, bite it in 2 or 3 encounters because you didn't bring cleric. But, anyways, so that's my mention of those systems. The main ones we're going to talk about are 5, 3, 5, and 2. So 5, multi-classing. You pick a class, you get a specialization down along the line. Hey, I want to add another class to it. You have your total character level, which caps at 20, but you can divvy up that between however many classes you want. I usually people do 2, maybe. People call them, part of the terminology has been a dip. You take a level dip into something that has a specialization at first level, or you take a dip into 3 levels or something. Usually it's like you're having a subclass. Usually it's for a combo on something really good, or because you don't really care about your level 20 ability. Uh, or if we get into some system mastery, you know what level the campaign caps out, so you plan ahead. Oh, I only need so many levels in this, but if I take this, I'll get this really useful ability. I know what's one of the I've heard of coffee lock, and then there are some people that say, yeah, instead of going 20 bard, go 19 bard and one one warlock. The wow, my brain's not working today. The one with the that can summon a sword. I'd go grab the book that probably has it, but it's some some classes have really power. Some specializations have really powerful low level specializations. Uh, and I think that's why there's no official rule for specialization multi-classing. If you pick a class, you get one specialization, and you can't play a shell game with which specialization you're using. And I think that's done for a balance reason, even though some specializations are totally not balanced. But if you're okay with it at your table, you can do it. But if you're DM and you have someone coming up to you, hey, can I multi-class specializations? They probably already know what they want to do. So either ask or say, nah, that's my recommendation. But do whatever you feel is fun. Uh, so 3-5 is a lot of rules in 3-5 I think are surprisingly similar to 5e. This is the streamlined game. This is the I want to scour over 30 books and perfect my character game. So it's much the same. You have a total class level. Uh, Original cap was 20. They did epic levels, which they're never doing for 5e, as far as I'm concerned. There's too much they'd have to they're never doing epic levels, but you could go beyond level 20 in this. Uh, there was, if you went purely down one class, there were epic class stuff you could look into. But the real curveball, okay, so there's two curveballs. One, if you start doing multi-classing, they introduced us something called favored classes. So depending on your character race, you have a different favorite class. And what that means is normally if you do um, two different classes on your character, if they're beyond a level apart, you start taking an experience point penalty, unless one of them is your favorite class. I'm not really too keen on that rule. Kind of guess I get why they put it in there, but not too keen on it. It's one of those things that makes it puts too much emphasis on picking the right race for whatever you're putting together. Then the really big curveball that they added in was prestige classes. Now, some of these got in 5e got turned into specializations, much like Arcane Archer was one that was repurposed as a specialization in 5e. But in 3.5, you had to take so many levels. You know, it was they started breaking it down. Unless there was something class specific, it was you needed certain attack bonus, maybe casting certain types of spells. Then you needed maybe certain levels in certain skills and maybe certain feats. And then you would be able to take a prestige class that has all sorts of special abilities potentially. Like Arcane Archer did what it is in 5e and more. One of the ones I liked for casters was Effigy Master, where you could build constructs to fight for you. Uh, and you know, there was a lot of classes, there was a lot of prestige classes that eventually got added. I can't begin to go into a list. I haven't read them all. I don't know them all. I know only the ones that I've looked at specifically for specific characters. So then we come to 2.8. So this ran a little different. So you make your character, and if you're a non-human, at level 1, you can choose to multi-class. Now, there were some class restrictions. I don't remember them all. I think there was dwarves can't be wizards. Gnomes, if they were wizards, had to be illusionists. And yeah, it's got some of it here. Like half elves have a bunch of multi-class combinations, and it's like some of them, yeah, you could be up to 3. I want to say I saw one point where you could do 4. The idea was you could be a warrior class, a clerical class, which was either cleric or druid, while warrior was fighter, paladin. Actually, I don't know if you could. Could you multi-class paladin? I don't think you could. I think it was just strictly fighter, and then clerk or druid could work. And at the time, we only had wizard as our arcane caster, and then you had the rogue. But so you started out that as level 1. You were 2 or 3 classes. And the interesting way that worked, I have a visitor here. Yeah, Ash, I'm making a video. The way that worked was you would take the best attack bonus or THACO as it was in these days, the best saving throw bonuses, and then your HP would be split among your dice. You would, uh-oh. Yeah, I'm talking about D&D. You would take the average, or yeah. So let's say you're a fighter cleric. You got two classes. So you roll your 10-sided die for the fighter, and you take half what you roll. You roll the 6-sided die for your cleric, you take half what you rolled. And, or was it 8? Forgive me today. Uh, and if you were a fighter mage, you roll the 10, you take half. You roll the d4 for wizard back then, and you take half that. If you were 3 classes, well, you'd take a third of whatever you rolled, and you'd add that in. Now, you had different experience values for each class, so you'd hit each level at a different time. But then the really important thing was that you were constantly splitting your experience points in different pools. So let's say you're dual classed. Well, I shouldn't use that term. Get into that in a second. So you're multi-classed in 2 classes. So essentially your experience points are split in half. So you're going to be roughly a level behind the rest of the party. That wasn't too terrible in second edition, so it it kind of evened out. You have access to abilities of 2 classes, and you're just a little bit behind. Now, if you ran like a cleric wizard, you would actually get to be pretty powerful because you have access to lots of spells and can fit probably any situation you need. So being behind one level will take you a little longer to get your most powerful spells. It doesn't really matter too much because you're really versatile. So it would pay off in the end. And of course, Fighter Wizard was a very popular one because it helped you stay alive and be able to do something in the early levels when otherwise it was one spell and a d4 of health until you're. But then there was another thing because they did a setup specific for humans called dual classing, which dual classing was more like what multiclassing in 3.5 and 5e are. You could potentially go up to max level in each class. So I guess it'd be more like playing Final Fantasy 14, where you just put on a different hat essentially, and hey, I'm playing another class for a while. Oh, but I can always put on the other hat. You would keep a lot of your abilities. They had a lot of wonky rules for, oh, well, don't try switching and doing your other abilities on this adventure when you're trying to gain experience in this. And it was really wonky and arbitrary of, we gave you these rules to do this, but don't be too good at what you're trying to do. I don't know why they did that. Probably just to make it not too powerful. But it was really powerful if you were in a situation where you could get all these classes leveled up. Of course, the caveat to that was like you could only do one warrior class, so fighter, ranger, paladin, or clerk or druid, rogue or bard, and then of course again we only had one wizard class, though you could be a specialist wizard back then. You could even do that in 3, and then of course in 5, being your specialization is what you do. You don't have a cutoff access to all the other spells. Yeah, that's one of the things with specialist wizards back then was, yeah, you're more powerful in some spells, but you lose some. But so that's how it worked. Uh, Little wonky, the multi-classing for demi-humans, humanoids, whichever term you prefer to use, uh, dwarves, elves, halflings, etc. It was a little bit like gestalting, only split experience, split, you know, averaging out your HP. Uh, but if you wanted to, if you do real well at 5e and want something more complex, you can try 3.5 because this is, like I said, this is a little stream. This is a streamlined version of this. This has feats. This has skills. This has a bunch of things. It has its warts. It's falls apart a little bit under its own weight, but if you want to try something more complex than 5e, give it a go. Uh, just know that if you're looking for the perfect prestige class, it might be out there somewhere, but you have a lot of work to sift through. Anyways, this has been a quick run through of how multi-classing worked in all the systems, whether you're new to role playing or just missed the system. There's some quick information for you. Anyways, uh, thanks for coming. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, drop me a like, drop me a subscribe. If you want to see different kind of content, suggest what you'd like to see me talk about down below. I've got a couple videos planned, but we'll see what we get through. I know I want to talk about damsels in distress, and a couple other tropes and things that happen in role-playing games. I also want to talk about freeform games, which there's a million channels about D&D, but who talks about freeform roleplay? Anyways, I'll see y'all later and have great adventures.